review the action items, which will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening, September 5th already, at 6 p.m. Cooler weather will be there. And I'm going to call upon Mr. Bill Burrow, the city manager, to review those action items.
Well, thank you, Mayor, members of the board. You will have several guests that evening. You've got a couple of proclamations, and Anthony Whittington, our Parks and Trails Director, will be here to accept a donation from Friends of the Park that'll be used at Family Park for playground equipment. You've got a short agenda. Most of it is on consent except for one item, and that first item on consent is Resolution R23-147, a resolution acknowledging the receipt of the City of Hot Springs financial statements for July 2023, and our Finance Director, Karen Scott, will discuss.
Good evening. Monthly financial statements are issued to keep city management and constituents apprised of the financial condition of the City of Hot Springs. The July 2023 statements will be provided as an attachment to the board action request, and staff recommends acknowledging receipts of the July 2023 financial statements.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Resolution R23-148, a resolution approving a contract between the City of Hot Springs and the National Park Service for dispatch services, and Police Chief Harverton will discuss this item.
Thank you, sir. Members of the board. The Hot Springs Police Department is requesting that you consider a resolution to allow us to engage in a contract with the National Park Service in regard to dispatch services. For many decades, the Hot Springs Police Department Dispatch Center has provided dispatch services to the Hot Springs National Park Service law enforcement section. In and around 2013, that relationship was discontinued. Since that time, the Hot Springs National Park has utilized another entity based out of town for dispatch services. This has proven to be problematic at times, leaving them with incomplete or no dispatch and radio coverage, and or requiring them to communicate on radio channels that are not monitored or shared by local law enforcement. This decreases officer safety, communication, and collaboration between NPS and HSPD, and is not in the overall best interest of public safety. In order to remedy these issues, the law enforcement section of the Hot Springs National Park Service would like to contract the Hot Springs Police Department to provide dispatch services to them once again. The Hot Springs Police Department would also like to provide those services to NPS, as we believe is in the best interest of public safety and the safety of those visiting the national park and our downtown business district. We also believe it would further enhance the relationship, information sharing, and officer safety between both agencies. Furthermore, it should be noted that all the 911 calls that currently come into the national park area are handled by HSPD Dispatch. Those calls are then transferred appropriately and as needed. HSPD also serves as backup for National Park when or if they need radio coverage due to issues with their system or dispatch center. This agreement would streamline that process and make it simpler for us to get critical calls for service within the park to them in a timely manner. HSPD and NPS have negotiated a cost of $19,600 for this service for a term of 1 year beginning on September 11th, 2023. 4 additional years are optional if both parties agree and want to continue the contract. The cost increases proportionally each year based upon anticipated call volume and the cost per call for service, which will be incurred by HSPD Dispatch. There is no financial impact to the City of Hot Springs in regard to this contract. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Chief, about how many additional calls do you anticipate coming into dispatch either per day or per month as a result of National Park Service?
They anticipate about 2,000 per year on a high end. Low end would probably be around the area of 1,500, 1,600, something like that.
Would there be, in your opinion, would there be any need for any additional dispatchers, or could the current dispatchers handle that volume?
We feel like
calls?
our current staffing can handle their volume, without any additional staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Chief, I think this is a good move on both the national parks side of the equation and your side of the equation. Being downtown and on Bathhouse Row, I know where that original call would, the destination point, and then they'd have to call back, and So I think the public will be best served, and those tourists who are in the national park will be best served.
Yes, sir, we agree. And then we feel like that in years past, when we were all using the same dispatch center, that it made us safer, the communication was better, officer safety was definitely increased, and even our responses to calls in that downtown area was streamlined, and you know, it didn't take us as long to get there in many cases, so.
You provide, do you cover from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. for the national park for all calls?
So they have an on-call system. So their rangers typically, depending on what the day of the week is and how their scheduling is, they'll go off around midnight normally. And then if there's any call for service that where we need their assistance within the park, we would contact them after hours, and they would send somebody in.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R23-149, a resolution approving the filing and acceptance of grant funding from the Arkansas Department of Agriculture through the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission, American Rescue Plan Act funding for infrastructure updates to the Davidson Drive wastewater treatment plant, and our project manager, Todd Pillar, will present this item.
Thank you and good afternoon. This is the application and the acceptance agreement with ANRC for a grant specifically to be used for the Davidson Drive wastewater treatment plant, and the grant is in the amount of $5 million. That's the first time I've ever brought something to the board that didn't have any financial impact to the board.
There is no match.
And no match. There are some stipulations. We have to be under contract by March 31st, 2024, and the work has to be completed before December 31st, 2026. And the grant funding reimbursements will start once we reach our match share limit, which is $1,666,667. And after this milestone is reached, we'll be able to go and get grant funding until the grant is consumed. And this is part of our CAO project, for we get out of the CAO with DEQ at Davidson Drive. And our engineer's estimate for the construction at Davidson Drive is $21 million. No financial impact.
Any questions of Todd? Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you'll be back up here.
I think I'll just stand here.
Resolution R23-150, a resolution approving payment to Entergy Arkansas LLC for utility easement crossings Lake Hamilton's main channel and Big Mazarn Creek for the raw water transmission main as part of the Lake Ouachita Water Supply Project. This will be in the amount of $177,293. Todd?
Thank you again. We have to cross energy property 8 times. Each of those requires a utility easement. And these 2 easements that I'm bringing to the board this meeting are the 2 big ones, the 2 lake crossings. The Lake Hamilton main channel, which was in the amount of $98,433, and the Big Mazarn Creek crossing, which was $78,860, for a total of $177,293. And Energy obtained appraisals for the property, for the easements, from Firstil Valuation Services out of Little Rock. And those evaluations or appraisals will be in your packet. And the fees, these easement fees, will be taken out of the 2023 Water Bond Fund.
Any questions of Todd on this matter? Now, a meeting or 2 ago, we authorized payment for some expenses of Entergy's related to the costs they incurred in creating the meets and bounds and surveying and all that stuff. Is this easement tied to that work?
Yes, the 60,000 I brought like maybe a couple of meetings ago was for surveying, environmental assessment, appraisals, and FERC review.
And legal fees.
And legal fees.
And you think those were related to these 2 items here?
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you.
These are actually easement fees, though.
Right, I
Yeah,
understand.
okay, okay.
Any questions from other board directors? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R-23-151, a resolution approving change order number 1 to the contract with Hanson and McLaughlin LLC for professional engineering and construction management services for the Gulf of Basin Force Main Extension Project. This is in the amount of $100,000. And again, Todd?
Yes, this is for Hanson McLaughlin. We've had a 20-inch old sewer force main that's failed several times this year, and this new 24-inch force main is going to parallel the 30-inch force main halfway to the Davidson Drive wastewater plant. And once we get this 24-inch force main in, it'll help with our overflows at manhole 1750 immensely. And of course, these failures with the 20-inch old sewer main led to our CAO we have with the DEQ at that location. And these engineering services will be funded again from the 2020 wastewater bond.
Any questions on this item?
Mayor, I will say that this is a line that we had hoped to have rehabbed, but we're really limping along at the Gulf Station. You'll see, occasionally where we have to send out a code red for that particular area because we've had wastewater overflows at 1750 into Spencer's Bay. There's been a couple of letters to the editor. We're really only able to run about one pump in that Gulf Station, which is fine for dry weather events, but wet weather events, as we get some of that I&I into the system. It's very diluted when it comes out, but it's still a contaminant that we need to track. But we were hoping to be able to salvage part of this existing main, but it is to the point where it will need to be replaced too, so.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Todd, as this line is being replaced as a result of this change order, how does it affect the wastewater travel for the time that the line has to be replaced for? Do we have some type of alternative route to address any wastewater? Would there be any need to stop wastewater to get this pipeline in, or what's going to happen to the flow? Is any changes to be expected to the flow as this new pipeline is being developed or replaced? Excuse me.
The 20-inch, the old one has to stay in service.
Okay.
So I got easements, a different route following the 30-inch for the large Gulf of pump station. So we have a 30-inch and a 24-inch pipe, a totally different route, but we'll end up in the same manhole that we call Chase Place manhole. So there won't be any disruption with, we broke the Gulf of force main into two phases. This first phase, about 7,000 feet, we can get done very quickly, like 120 to 150 days, which takes us off the 20-inch old force main quicker.
Yeah.
So the new pipelines replacing the old will not disrupt the flow?
No.
The
No, okay.
existing main will continue to
Okay.
operate as is.
Yeah, we have to
until-
keep that main running.
Until the new ones are put in? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any additional questions? Director Holliday?
Thanks. You kind of answered it, but I wanted to make sure that I understood. So one, this change order is specific to the engineering, so we can now do the 24 as opposed to the rehab, correct? So we'll have another contract coming before us, I'm guessing, for the actual 24-inch
For the
line.
construction.
Yeah, the construction will be later, but the 120 to 150 days, that's once the engineering is complete, like that's the construction time? Are you looking at that from now?
Okay, so this force main plans have gone to the
Correct.
health department. We have health
Yep.
department approval.
Yep.
So we're bidding it,
September.
yep,
Next
Okay.
week,
it advertises this weekend.
We hope to have it completed in
Yeah, so
150
when we
days.
bid it in September,
Okay.
it'll be 120 days from then.
Okay.
It's the actual, 120 days is actual the days the contractor has, time-wise, to get the job done.
Okay, yeah, because I had someone come to me literally this week about this project, so I'm glad I'll have an answer.
This has been another long road for us. I mean, when we started this a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, we had 18 chronic overflows, and we've, through this board allowing us to pass some of the bonds we've had, we've been able to take care of those in Fairwood and Stokes, and we're really down to 1750 and some of the Gulf of work. So
Any additional questions? Thank you.
next, we have consider resolution R23-152, a resolution approving change order number 2 to contract number 2 with Belt Construction, Inc. for the raw water supply transmission pipeline as part of the Lake Ouachita Supply Project. This was in the amount of $452,563, and again, Todd's going to discuss this item.
Yes, contract 2 is, had a lot of, more rock excavation, than we ever anticipated. It exceeded the quantities in the bid form, a lot, by $452,563. We were aware of this, as we do our monthly progress meetings with the contractor. So when we went to get the 2023 water bond, we added the money to that, so it's covered out of the 2023 water bond. But the amount of the rock will be the same unit price as was in the bid form when we bid the project almost 2 years ago.
So this, explain what we're talking about. We got into more rock than we anticipated, so the contract has something related to tonnage or?
Cubic yards.
Okay.
Cubic yards. So on the bid form, when a contractor bids a project, we'll have rock excavation line item 1,000 cubic yards. Okay, but when they actually put the project in the ground, the daily inspectors keep track of how much rock they excavate, and for instance, they have 2,500 cubic yards of rock. Well, then 1,500 of it gets reconciled as part of the change order. He gets the same bid price he bid it, 2
Yeah.
years ago, but we compensate him for that.
You really don't know ahead of time.
No.
No.
Any further questions on this item? Thank you.
The next item will be your only business to come under your new business. It is a resolution, R23-153, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 121 Chapel Street a nuisance and approving emergency condemnation actions pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. And I believe this is an after-the-fact condemnation. Our Chief Building Official, Mike Scott, will discuss the item.
Thank you. Early May, this building had a major fire. It burnt real bad. Fire chief and I walked through it. We identified several structural issues. So we moved forward with taking it down as quick as possible. Giant holes in the floor. The front brick facade, of course, brick is supported by a wood frame behind it. Well, all the wood frame was gone. The facade was leaning outward. This area on Chapel Street is heavily populated with a certain population, and they go in and out of these buildings, so that's why we felt it necessary to move forward, take this down as quick as possible. After doing all of our work with ADEQ and getting that all passed, then we moved forward with the bid and got it down. So this building today is now down, the lot is cleaned up, looks good. So
The other structures on Chapel Street, okay?
they catch on fire quite often, sir. 137's been on fire 3 times this year. The fire chief has said that his men would no longer go in 137 Chapel, because when they go in there, there's couches in the hallways, mattresses, things that his firemen can't see in the dark. And so
Any further questions?
I forgot to mention the owner did sign off a demo waiver on this prior to demoing this. So
He actually called me, and I think it was pretty big cost on this one, like $7,700, I think. But he did call and said that he was ready to take care of that, but we need to go through this process first before we could actually get
Yeah.
it to him.
yeah, Joanne's notified me she wants to pay the bill, and I said, ma'am, you can't pay it until I condemn it. And then we finished the bill. We hadn't, but anyway. And we actually saved them money. They got kind of owner got a bid to take it down, and he and the contractor couldn't agree, and we actually saved them $3,000 by bidding it out. We got it done $3,000 cheaper than the owner got a bid, so.
Very good. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Mayor,
further
that completes your agenda. I do have a couple of things, though, that I wanted to make the board aware of.
business? Please proceed.
We are working on some work sessions. One of those will be on the development code update. We should get that back to us in a draft form for staff on the 19th, and we're going to try to schedule that, I think, on September 26th. I don't have that in front of me, but I think that was the date we were shooting for. On September 2nd, I haven't talked with the city attorney yet, but we have discussed needing to come in and talk about the Hot Springs Metro Partnership and some of the clauses in there, primarily the Majestic site. They have sent an email requesting that that be extended, but we wanted to have some dialogue with the board. We're going to try to do that. I don't have that date in front of me, but I think it's September the 2nd. In addition, the board had asked about some processes on district court, and so we may try to bring that to you on that date as well. Looking further ahead at our budget calendars and the meetings we have with all of the departments, we're going to try to schedule your work session. Karen, do you have that date? Is it October 24th? That is typically, October has 5 Tuesdays, and that's an off meeting for you. If we want to move, if we don't want to have it on the 24th, we won't be able to bring that action item to you at November 7th's meeting, but we could bring it on the 21st. So it's kind of just up to the consensus of the board whether you want to keep that open Tuesday. If so, I'll push a work session to the next agenda meeting and bring that bring the budget to you in for approval, scheduled for that second meeting of November versus the first.
The obvious advantage of having that in the open Tuesday is it gives you a little more time. You won't have an agenda to deal with. You can go right into your work session at 4 o'clock.
Those are typically 3 and 4 hour meetings, aren't they?
They're going to be
Yeah,
long.
so
Yes.
we
But
should-
our goal was to try to have the budget to you by November the 7th, have that completed. But to do that, we're going to have to meet on the 24th for the work session, giving staff time to come back and make any changes that comes out of that work session before we bring it to you for adoption.
In the past, we've met at the fire department. That would be the plan for this as well?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
You kept saying September 2nd for some of these. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, I
Well-
didn't think so. That's a weekend.
Did I say September 2nd? Bear with me.
I think that's Labor Day.
That thought crossed my mind,
There's,
too.
was the weekend, and then.
I think it's the 12th. I had a 2 in my mind.
There you go.
Okay.
September 12th.
I know there was some discussion also about working through some of the matters in Article 2 of your code that pertain to the board itself, resolutions and ordinances and your procedural matters. So we'll try to get all those lined up.
Side note, I will not be back. So.
Where will you still be?
Oh,
Are you-
you're staying
yeah, I've-
extended?
I don't come back till the 13th. And then it sounds like Director Beard is the extended as well. I have
Okay.
no idea about Karen.
I'm sure she's extended as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
Um,
I'd like to be a part of that if possible. But-
We'll look
but I
at some
know
other
we're-
dates and send it out to you.
I noticed, and I've got no problem with the 24th being the date that we scheduled for the budget work session. Would it be possible to include in that session where Evergreen is with kind of looking at compensation wage increases for departments, city departments?
I'm sure that will be integrated to some extent, but your budget work session will be approximately 3 hours as it is.
Evergreen won't be here, but I'll give you an update during that time.
Okay.
I mean, your budget is, if there are recommendations or anticipated amendments to the budget going into '24, that's going to be part of the budget discussion, obviously. But I will just say on behalf of Bill, because it's sensitive for him and Karen, I'm sure, if we get down in the minutia of the budget itself, you'll have to do it multiple times until midnight. It is a very, very involved document.
Well, I think too, what even Bill and I have discussed about in times earlier this afternoon is that if we get back some numbers and some data as a result of Evergreen's findings for compensation wage increases and the budget was passed, there are ways that we can make amendments
Sure.
to what we passed for the budget as well,
That's
as it
correct.
relates to those compensation increases.
Our goal is to have that information to present as we get closer to that. Hopefully by November, we'll have some pretty good numbers to hang on to. I can tell you, I'm very, very impressed with Evergreen. We're getting weekly updates from them. Right now, they're still in the process of the inquiry or the questionnaire, the survey that they've got out for all employees. And so we're waiting on some of that information to get back. They've looked at every position that we have, every classification, every pay grade, where we're falling on those pay grades. We're probably going to see that come in separate quartiles like we've seen in some others in the past. But I can tell you, I'm very impressed with them. They came and had 2 days meeting with staff, meeting with focus groups of staff members. They did an orientation that was open to every employee. They've got a YouTube that they did for employees that couldn't make one of the meetings. I'm very impressed with them. I think we're going to get a really good document back from them to be able to present to the board. And again, I don't have a crystal ball to know what that's going to be. It could be something we can do in a year. It could be something that we need to phase in over 2 or 3 years. We've seen that in the past as well. But one of the things that we've charged them with, and I feel pretty comfortable they're going to be able to do, and that is to look at our pay plan altogether, not just where employees are falling on the current pay plan. We've had what we call a merit increase pay plan since I've been with the city since at least 2002. The last time we funded that was in 2006. This pay plan that we're on doesn't work. So we're looking at ways on where we could have a pay plan that may be more akin to a step increase that we have in public safety, that would allow employees through tenure and achievement move to another step automatically. But in doing that, we'll also have the ability to keep up with our COLAs. So we've never been able to balance that since I've been here. It's either you do a COLA or you do a merit. There was one year that we just moved everybody down a step on the scale to try to have some of that separation from a new hire and somebody that's been here 8 years. That's something that we're hearing a lot of from employees because when you stay with COLA every year, it keeps you somewhat within the market for that position, but it doesn't have any separation from tenured employees. One of the other things we're looking at is internal equity in the jobs that we have. And making sure that we don't have as much compression as we see when we try to make some of these changes through classification. So it's a long kind of update, but I'm very impressed with them. I think we're going to have a really, really good product when they finish. I think they're going to get complete. I'm hoping they get complete with that as we're moving into those budget sessions. But if not, we can certainly bring it back to the board for an amendment to the budget. The budget's something that we've got dates. It's got to stay on that track. We've got to get that passed outside of Evergreen. I'm still hoping that we have it as we move through the process. But if not, we'll come back and the board will be able to amend it.
Any further questions of Bill on that? Okay. Anything else, Bill?
That's it, sir.
Okay, well, this completes the agenda meeting. Again, we'll formally address these action items next Tuesday evening, September 5th, right here at City Hall, beginning at 6 p.m. And enjoy the slightly cooler weather. Thank you.
What time's y'all's flight on Saturday?